Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett showed no hesitation when she claimed that Barron might not be Trump's son, but the true surprise hit when sealed court records began to support what she said you could sense it through the screen. There was tension. Building the House Oversight Committee's hearing on presidential overreach was already running an hour late. Most people had stopped paying attention till Representative Jasmine Crockett leaned forward, slipped off her glasses, and called for quiet, not from those present, but from the weight of tradition. Her voice grew softer rather than louder, which somehow made her words echo even more. I want to move this discussion into territory that speaks directly to British began, locking eyes with the panel, as if she knew the impact of the bombshell she was about to drop. Some committee members shifted uncomfortably. Reuben Geller looked clearly uneasy. Crockett was no longer sticking to the script, at least not the one agreed upon. This nation has spent years choosing power over honesty, and that ends today. A few scoffs, some lifted brows, but she pushed ahead, calm and steady. There exists a group of sealed documents filed in an Arizona court in 2019. Records protected by legal hurdles and, more crucially, hidden by political pressure. Those documents involved then President Trump, a former employee, and a child. Then silence fell across the Chambéry hold, a sworn statement from a federal contractor. She oversaw digital destruction of records marked under the White House Correspondence Protection Act. One document stood out. It detailed a payment of $3.1 million to a woman listed under the name TB. The only part left unredacted. She paused, turning to a photocopy. The camera zoomed in. Paternity agreement subject to non-disclosure, DNA results pending. Rappromat Overby tried to cut in. Is this really the moment? But Crockett held steady. American people did not vote for secrecy. They voted for accountability. If the president learned during his first term that Barron Trump was not biologically his and hid that truth to protect his reputation, we face a problem that is not only legal but deeply moral. Now, the hearing was no longer business as usual, had become national turmoil and broke into live coverage. MSNBC followed. Even Fox chose not to cut away. Phones in pockets nationwide lit up like hazard signals. TikTok videos went viral in minutes, each one bearing the same question: did Jasmine just say Barron is not Trump's son? Inside the chamber, whispers turned into uproar. Overby slammed his pen on the table and called to adjourn. Crockett raised her voice for the first time. We will not hide the truth simply because it makes those in power uneasy. We are not speaking about rumors. We are speaking about justice, distorted for personal shielding. Repressive Eleanor Vance tried to steer the conversation away, whispering, we should leave the child out of this. Crockett shot back, you want to protect a child, then stop turning him into a tool for political power. The room erupted. Microphones picked up. Chaos House broadcast suddenly cut out for over 3 minutes. Viewers thought it was a technical issue until someone leaked the raw video online. Trump's name was censored twice. The document Jasmine cited placed under Homeland Security scrutiny just hours later, but the news had already caught fire. That night, network ratings hit new highs. News outlets raced to confirm who TB was. Crockett, however, stood firm when a reporter in the hallway asked if she was afraid of consequence. Her reply was cool and precise: no, because I have not said anything I cannot prove. The hearing reconvened 22 minutes later, but no real debate followed. The room was no longer in discussion, but in chaos. Some staffers avoided looking at others, simply walked out. But what nobody saw, not on C-SPAN or in the news reports, was that Crockett received a text on her personal phone as she stepped back into her officiant word finally. But while the committee grew quiet, the White House was in turmoil. Inside the West Wing, a junior staffer spilled her iced coffee all over a printer, but nobody noticed. Deverian's focus was glued to the muted TV hanging in the corner of the Roosevelt room. Jasmine Crockett was still speaking, and the silence in the room was not only about the broadcast, it was about what they all feared could happen next. Across the hall, Chief of Staff Brian Hafford stood frozen, watching the screen without blinking. The president had just left a trade briefing and was walking toward them, half listening, waving off an aide. talking about agricultural tariffs in Kansas. Then he saw Crockett's face appear on the screen. "What is this?" Trump asked, pointing at the TV as he entered. "Why is this on every channel?" Nobody replied quickly, and Trump looked at Hafford. "Brian, what is going on?" Hafford started to speak, but stopped. "Seer, she mentioned sealed records about Barron." Trump's face froze in that half-open glare he had when he did not know whether to laugh or throw something. "She did what?" The room went silent. Samin cleared their throat quietly. Another aide slowly moved toward the remote. "Do not touch that." Trump shouted. He moved closer to the TV, eyes narrowing. "Right as Crockett said the word paternity for 3 whole seconds. No one reacted. Then Trump spun around and shouted, "Get me the network immediately. Connect me to, what is his name, Peterson, at CNN right now." An intern rushed to make the call. Hafford stepped closer. "Carefully, sir. We might need to think about how we handle this strategy." Trump growled. "She just said, Barron is not my son. Live on television. And you want strategy?" Grabbed his phone from the table and dialed Hope Sinclair, his personal lawyer, putting the call on speaker. "She cannot say that is defamation. I want a statement. We sue her. We sue scene. We sue them all." Hope replied, voice steady as always. "Her defamation does not apply if what she said turns out to be true." "Are you saying she has no evidence?" Trump's silence answered the question for everyone. Hafford spoke up. "We do not know what evidence she has, but we do know this: it is already everywhere. Every network has it. Not a son is trending. TikTok has videos from several angles." Trump's hand was shaking, and he was not even trying to hide. "I turned the volume back up just in time to hear Crockett's last statement. If the president learned during his first term that Barron Trump was not biologically his and hid that truth to protect his public image, we have a problem that is not only legal but also moral." Trump threw the remote against the wall. It broke into pieces. "This is all because of that foolish agreement," he mumbled. Now, Hafford realized there was some agreement. "How long have you known?" he asked, voice quiet, almost gentle. Trump did not answer. Instead, he looked at Marjorie Klein, one of his longest-serving advisors. "Call Melania for me, sir. She is in Europe. Then wake her up." Klein paused. "Do you really want to call my wife?" Klein stepped out. Trump dropped into the leather chair at the end of the conference table, staring at the broken remote on the floor. "You think she is bluffing?" he asked, the room voice lower. Nobody answered. Sinclair finally spoke. "The NDA is still valid, but if Crockett has that affidavit, then someone inside leaked it, probably from the Digital Records Office. We need to find the leak quickly, and we need to prepare Barron." That last word made Trump wince. He had not even said his son's name. "Leave him out of this," he murmured. "But the press will not." Sinclair replied. Hafford sat across from him. "If we do not manage the next 24 hours, this becomes the entire election. You know that, right?" Trump gave a small nod, but he was no longer focused on strategy. His mind had gone somewhere else, somewhere darker, somewhere that smelled like a hotel room in D.C. in 2005, and a woman crying, who signed her name next to an X-back. Then he only wanted to win. A woman came forward. He paid it, disappeared until now. "Tell the networks I am going on air in 30 minutes, he said. "Sir, I said 30, but before the cameras were even read, Twitter had already named Jasmine Crockett the voice of the moment." In a gas station parking lot outside Dayton, Ohio, 42-year-old Lorna Peak had just finished pumping gas when she checked her phone and saw an AP alert. Mention of Jasmine Crockett makes explosive claim about President Trump's marriage. Live on air. She usually did not tap headlines like that, but something about this once a thing about how calm Crockett looked made her pause mid-scroll. She pressed play. Blurry video took a moment to load inside the store. The cashier already had CNN playing on a small flat screen above the cigarette rack. By the time Crockett said the word paternity, Lorna held her breath back. In Seattle, 19-year-old Denzel Yates was watching in the break room at the Apple store where he worked. His coworker Dana froze mid-bite of her leftover Thai food. "Wait, is she saying Trump is not the father?" "She did not say it," Denzel answered. "She showed it." Clips were spreading all over TikTok. The original live broadcast had over 2.3 million views in less than an hour. One slowed clip showed Crockett gripping the affidavit tight. Another cut to Trump's shocked face from an older rally, dubbed in for extra effect by 4pempty. Hashtag not his son was #1 worldwide on Twitter. But below it, #Crockett Truth around the country. People had different opinions. In a high school cafeteria in Mesa, Arizona, a junior named Joaquin was arguing with his history teacher. "Does this even matter?" he asked. "It is his private life." His teacher, Mirzak, shook her head. "If those documents are real, it is not just privity is lying connected to public trust. You hide something this big, you do not stop there." In rural Pennsylvania, retired Marine named Cal was watching Fox News in his den. The anchor seemed unapologetic. Network still had not switched away, but the tone was shifting. Even in one of Trump's strongest arrest outs were surfacing. What if it is true? His wife, Teresa, whispered. Cole stayed silent outside a barber shop in Tallahassee. Phones kept changing hands. One man wearing a Raptors jersey asked, "Do you all think she invented it?" The barber shook his head slowly. "No, that woman did not even blink. You saw her face. She has been keeping this for a while." Within hours, public opinion shifted. A quick poll by DataPulse asked, "Do you believe Jasmine Crockett's statement about President Trump and Barron Trump?" Highs 48%, no 33%, unsure 19%. For a country known for division, that was a landslide. CNN replayed the clip every Hormsons invited legal experts. Even Newsmax had to mention the buzzsaw. They tried to call it a political setup, but on TikTok and Instagram, Crockett's image was being reshaped in real-time. Videos mixed her face with Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Shirley Kishelmone. Post simply read, "She said it on camera in front of everyone and did not flinch." Meanwhile, Donald Trump's live stream was delayed twice. Backstage, his team argued about how it would look while talking about the claim. Make it worse would staying silent seem weak. His press secretary issued a bland, patriotic statement accusing Republican Crockett of reckless attacks on character. But even that barely caused a stir, because no people were focused not just on the claim, but on why she decided to say it now. Some said it was planned. Editors thought it was spontaneous, but the real discussion was not about timing, it was about truth. In a podcast recorded that night in Milwaukee, two college seniors broke it all down for their Gen Z listeners. "Look," said the host Bianca Ford, "if she is lying, she is finished. But if she is not lying, that means the President of the United States used his power to hide a child's identity from the public for years. That is not gossip, that is corruption." Calls started flooding into radio programs. Grandpas and argued over it at kitchen tables. Teenagers filmed reactions during car rides. Some called it brave, some called it disgusting, some just kept replaying it. And yet through it all, Jasmine Crockett did not release any follow-up. No press statement, no media event, just a single tweet posted at 8:12 p.m. Truth has a way of surfacing when it is ready, but while she stayed calm, the White House was in chaos, and that panic was about to become publicity. Was almost 9:30 p.m. when Jasmine Crockett arrived at the CNN studio in downtown D.C. She looked tired, but also like rest could wait. No group with her, no flashy jewelry, just a navy blue blazer, a neat ponytail, and a folder clutched in her hand. Inside the studio, the producers were rushing. This was not planned as a live night, but ratings were soaring. Anderson Pike was already sitting there scanning last-minute notes with the focus of someone about to host the most watched interview of the year. "Congresswoman Crockett," he said as she came in, standing with a stiff smile, "we appreciate you coming in." She nodded, calm. "I will not take long. I just want to be clear." When they went live, there was no music opening, no smooth transition, just her face-centered, eyes focused. Pike tried to start gently. "You have caused a political earthquake today, Congresswoman. Some say you crossed a line, others say you exposed what many were afraid to touch. Can you explain why today was the day?" Crockett paused. "Because I was not elected to guard a man's secrets," she said. "He was elected to protect the people's right to know the truth, even when that truth makes them unapologetic." Spike glanced down at his notes. "You spoke of sealed documents and a possible payment connected to Barron Trump's birthday. You actually have those documents?" "I have seen them," she replied. "I have access through a whistleblower who has asked to stay anonymous for clear reasons. I am working with lawyers to figure out what can be shared publicly without risking their safety." And to be clear, Pike continued carefully, "You are saying on national television that you believe President Trump knowingly hid the truth about Barron's paternity to protect his public image." Crockett leaned forward. "I am saying that all the information I have seen strongly supports that belief. I am also saying his administration used the power of government and DA's legal pressure and hush money to keep it hidden backstage." Producers were closely watching social media. The network's app was crashing under traffic. They had not seen numbers like this since election night in 2020. Pike clearly you understand the consequences of this, Congresswoman. If you are wrong, I am not, she interrupted. Silence. He tried to change the topic. Many critics say this puts a child in the middle of public attention, that it is unfair to Barron Trump. Crockett nodded seriously. It is unfair, but it is not me who put him there. That responsibility is on his father. When you lie to the country to protect your own image, it is your own house that falls apart, not mine. Her voice stayed level, did not need to rise. Pike pressed again. You think this changes the path of the election? No, she said. I think it changes how we judge character, and that is more important. Back at the White House, Trump's media team was furious. They had not expected her to go live so quickly, and they definitely had not expected her to sound like that. Calm, controlled, unwavering. She was not losing control. She was not guessing. She looked like someone who knew much more than she was sharing. That worried them. The CNN clip was posted online within minutes. In under an hour, it had over 12 million views. A reporter from the Baltimore Ledger tweeted, whether you believe her or not, Jasmine Crockett came to the fight with evidence and a strong backbone. This was not a leak. This was a warning. By midnight, other representatives were being asked where they stood. Half refused to speak. Some tried to avoid the topic, but when Rep. Lynette O'Connor from Oregon shocked everyone. I have seen some of what Rep. Crockett talked about, O'Connor told a local news anchor, and I believe she is telling the truth. That comment caused another surge online, because now it was not just Jasmine, as someone else had seen it too. Meanwhile, Crockett had gone back to her apartment in Arlington. She did not answer any more calls, did not refresh Twitter. She just sat on her couch, shoes still on, staring at the folder in front of her. Inside were more documents, some she had not brought up, yet some she wished she would never have to, but if necessary she was prepared. But while Jasmine sat in quiet, the woman at the center of the story was being pulled into attention she never wanted. In a quiet corner of El Serena, California, 51-year-old Genevieve Larson drove into her driveway just after 6 o'clock a.m., still wearing the blue scrubs from her night shift as a nurse. She had not even shut off the ignition when her neighbor hurried up, the pathphone in hand. You need to see this, she said, out of breath. Genevieve squinted at the screen. At first she did not understand what she was seeing, just a video of Jasmine Crockett sitting upright in a studio, her voice steady, calm. A woman under the name TB. Genevieve's chest went tight. That name was not random, it was hers. Talia Breyer, the name she had used in court, protected under an order she prayed would stay hidden, and now it was everywhere inside her house. Genevieve locked the door, closed the blinds, and turned on the burner phone she kept hidden inside an old coffee can under the sink. It had not rung in more than 4 years, but today there were 4 missed calls. And voicemail. The voice she heard belonged to her lawyer. Genevieve, I know you have seen it. Do not answer anyone. I am on the next flight. We knew this day might arrive. Just stay calm. Her hands shook as she sat down at the kitchen table. The silence in her home felt loud. Her son was away at college, and for the first time in years she wished he was not because she needed protection, but because she did not want to face this alone. By midday, her name was still not public, but reporters were closing in. Paparazzi were parked 2 streets away. Someone pretended to be a delivery driver, pushed a note under her garage door. We know who you are. Talk to us first. Name your price. She did not respond. Not yet. Her mind drifted back to 2005, to the hotel suite in Phoenix, where everything began. She was a surgical tech, then young, determined, still believing people deserved second chances. She met Trump at a charity dinner through friends. She was not exactly charming, but he was convincing, confident. He made you feel like saying no would be the biggest mistake you could make. 8 months later, she had a baby and a secret that could ruin everything she told him. At first, he brushed her aside. I am not the guy, he said with a grin. Then came the lawyers, then the deal. He never signed the birth certificate, but he did sign the check. And then Genevieve used the money to start over. New city, new name, new life. It nearly worked until Jasmine Crockett spoke her name without actually speaking her name across the country. Crockett's team had already been in touch through a secure line. No demands, just a warning that reporters were digging. Simone from a DC paper had already narrowed it Down to 5 women, they were all getting phone calls, and Genevieve knew it was only a matter of time. Her lawyer, Harris Noland, arrived in Oakland by mid-afternoon and headed straight to her house. "They are going to try to break here," said as he sat across from her at the same kitchen table where she once packed school lunches. "I know," she replied quietly, "but you do not owe them anything." She looked him in the eye. "But I owe her something, Crockett." He nodded. Genevieve stood up, walked over to the cabinet, and took out a red folder. Inside were copies of the first court filing, emails from Trump's legal team, proof of the paternity test request that he never responded to. "I do not want to go on television," she said. "I do not want interviews. I just want the truth to come out." Harris watched her. "Then we will do it your way." Written statement through the Ledger or the Guardian, somewhere that will not twist it. Nodded. "And I want people to know I did not ask for this, but I am not going to act like it never happened." At the evening, Genevieve's name was still not in the news, but the right people now knew exactly who she was. A journalist from the Washington Post sent a request for comment at 7:02 p.m. 10 minutes later, another message. "Arrivederci. No, you are the woman Jasmine spoke about. I would like your side before someone else tells it for you." Genevieve shut her laptop. Tomorrow she would decide. But just as she was finding her voice, Again, a seasoned journalist in another part of the country, was about to stumble across a lead no one else had noticed yet. In a small newsroom in downtown St. Louis, veteran journalist Conrad Wells stared at his screen, blinking against the cold blue glow. He was not young, not flashy, and definitely not part of the online crowd chasing viral trends, but when the Crockett story broke, something pulled at him, not the uproar. He had seen enough of that. It was the silence around the noise, the parts no one else was following. He leaned back in his squeaky chair, cracked his knuckles, and opened a folder on his desktop labeled NDA Pattern 2017. Conrad had covered Trump for years, but not the way cable news did. He tracked patterns, payments, property records, offshore accounts. After Crockett's remarks, he remembered something unusual he had flagged 5 years earlier: a wire transfer from a Trump-connected shell company to an Arizona-based LLC called Red Lantern Diagnostics. No one had cared then. It was small, buried in a quarterly filing. But now, he typed quickly, Red Lantern Diagnostics, Arizona paternity medical testing court records. 2019 public record came up from Maricopa County, most of it sealed, but the docket listed a motion filed under the initials TB versus JDD John Donald Trump. No ruling was listed, only a withdrawal of complaint and a note of private settlement. Conrad sat up straighter. He called in a favor from an old courthouse clerk who owed him one. 30 minutes later, she whispered on the phone, there was an affidavit filed, sealed within 3 hours of submission. You are not the first person asking about it today. Who else? He asked. She hesitated. Lawyers, private ones, not reporters. He jotted that down. By then Crockett's team had gone silent. Careful, smart, but that did not mean he could not look for Clush phone to contact at a medical courier service based in Tempe. They used to handle shipments for private labs back in 2019. One of their drivers recorded a pickup from an address matching Red Lantern Diagnostics, destination DC, overnight. Sender Genevieve Larson. There it was. He did not publish it, not yet, but he understood now. Crockett was not guessing. She had evidence, and maybe the paperwork to back it up. By the end of the day, Conrad had a name, a timeline, a money trail, and a story. No other outlet had. He emailed Crockett's office directly. No fancy wording, just one line. Know about Red Lantern. If this is real, it is bigger than a scandal. It is about systematic misuse of power. I'm not trying to be first. I'm trying to be correct. An hour later, he got a reply. We are listening. It was brief, but it told him enough. They were not panicking. They were getting distal. The truth was not only in DC. He began searching FEC records, looking for legal payments labeled as consulting or discretionary services. He found 3 entries, all dated in mid-2020, linked to legal risk management. 2 were tied to familiar law firms. The third was a small Arizona firm named G. Noland and Associates, Genevieve's lawyer. It all fit together. At 10:17 p.m. Conrad sat back at his desk, cracked open a warm can of Dr. Pepper, and began writing the first draft of what would become the most read piece of his career. He did not start with the child, he did not start with the money, started with the silence. In a democracy, secrets eat away at us from the inside. Is not only about scandal, it is about a government system designed to hide what it fears. Filed it under embargo, waiting for the legal team's green light, but he felt deep down the barrier was breaking. Crockett had begun was not a stunt, it was the start of something, and by morning, the fuse would burn right through every newsroom in the nation. But just as Conrad was getting ready to publish, the White House was struggling to keep its closest circle from falling apart, and things were about to become even more chaotic. By 7 o'clock a.m. the West Wing was filled with damage control. Legal aides ran between officiphones pressed to their ears. Staffers were working through the night, some too anxious to even change clothes. The press office whiteboard had been erased, rewritten, and erased again, and one could tell which plan would last for more than a few minutes. President Trump had not made any public statement since Crockett's hearing, but inside the walls of 16 Pennsylvania Avenue, he was far from silent. In the Roosevelt Room he paced, wearing a faded red tie, hair slightly messy, shouting into a speaker, "Finny, find out who that woman is, the one Crockett is talking about. I want her full background, school jobs of everything." An aide answered from the other end of the line, "Sir, we believe her name is Genevieve Larkinson. She changed her legal name in 2010. There is a sealed court record. I do not care about the court." Trump snapped, "I care about the story. We find her, we discredit her hopes." And Claire, his legal counsel, shared a look with Brian Hafford across the room. Even they were beginning to doubt whether this could be contained. Beckus, it was no longer just about one woman, it was about the whole system protecting an image behind closed doors. The communications staff was falling apart. A young speechwriter broke down in tears after Sinclair shouted at him for suggesting they admit a minor mistake. Their aide spilled coffee on her pages while printing a prepared statement that never got delivered. Nobody was certain who was calling the shots anymore. Trump changed his mind every horan. Then there was the leak at 8 o'clock a.m. A recording surfaced on a private news Discord channel. Then appeared on Reddit within minutes. It was audio, faint but clear enough. Hopes and Claire's voice. "If the affidavit leaks, we are exposed. We cannot spin away paternity avoidance." If DNA order was not ignored, it was avoided. The clip spread quickly. Cable networks scrambled to confirm it. It was raw and unverified, but voice analysts compared it to public recordings. When the hour, the timeline matched as well. Sinclair was cornered in a hallway by a Fox reporter later that morning. She did not deny the voice, she simply kept walking inside the Oval Office. Trump was losing control. "She recorded me," he said under his breath. "No, sir," Hafford replied quietly. "She recorded herself." "Same thing," he snapped. Alfred did not respond. At 10 o'clock a.m. Trump held a private video call with First Lady Melania Trump, who was still in Geneva attending a youth wellness event. Her face was calm but distant. "You said it was taken care of," she said quietly. "It was taken care of," he replied, "until that woman came forward." Melania did not react. "You should have told me everything, not parts." Trump lowered his voice. "At this does not have to change anything. Barron is still our son." She blinked, lips tight. "No, Donald, he is my son." The call ended soon after. Back in the press room, reporters were swarming with questions that kept coming. Has the president viewed the affidavit Jasmine Crockett mentioned? Was there a DNA test submitted by Donald Trump in 2019? Did the administration block court documents through internal channels? The press secretary tried to hold the line, reading from a prepared statement. "The president firmly denies any and all false statements about his family and believes these accusations are a shameful attempt to score political points." It fell flat, because now even people inside were speaking out. A mid-level staffer spoke anonymously to the Philadelphia Review. "We knew about the red file since 2020. It was kept in the top right drawer of Helfer's cabinet. Anyone who asked about it was told to stay focused on the campaign." When the story went public at noon, Twitter erupted again. People were not just reacting, they were choosing sides. Even in conservative circles, quiet discussions began bubbling up. Republican strategist Janelle Christian told Pistis, "Is not about party anymore, it is about power." Defended by Lisa. "If Crockett's claims hold up, we have to deal with it directly inside the White House." The circle of trust kept growing smaller. Sinclair was already writing a resignation letter. Holford had stopped answering calls from the press, the only one still trying to keep things together was Trump himself, and even he was starting to crack. He shouted orders, demanded loyalty, but now, people did not just agree, they paused, because the truth had begun to leak and there was no way to seal it back inside the cracks. But the biggest crack was not in the White House walls, it was hidden in a judge's drawer in Phoenix, and the record there was about to come to light 2 floors underground in the dusty basement archives of the Maricopa County Family Court in Phoenix. Judge Rosanna Vitarelli sat looking at an envelope she had not touched in over 5 years. It was marked confidential by order, case TB versus J.D. Chi still recalled the day it came in, the hurried filing, the frantic clerk, the strange call from a senior federal judge asking her to keep the matter sealed for national security reasons. At the time it sounded ridiculous, but the pressure was real. The signature on the memo, Attorney General Jerome Beck. She did not ask questions. Judges learned early how to read between the lines, but it stayed with her like a thorn. And now, Jasmine Crockett had made it public. Judge Vitarelli slowly brushed her thumb over the envelope's edge. She was 67 now, just weeks from retirement. She had overseen thousands of cases, custody disputes, name changes, protection orders, but this one lingered because it had no ending. Inside was the original paternity motion signed by Genevieve Larson under her alias, Talia Bree. There were 5 attachments and was a court-issued DNA test request marked for service to Donald J. Trump. Others were replies from Trump's legal team, all asking for delays, all citing scheduling problems, and finally a motion to dismiss because of significant executive duties. But what it did not contain was a DNA result. The test never took place. Judge Vitarelli lifted the phone and dialed her former clerk, now a civil rights attorney in Flagstaff. "Have you been following the news?" she asked, hard to avoid. The voice answered, "Remember that 2019 Caseth one I told you about over drinks? You kept that under seal. I could still have it silence. Are you thinking of opening it?" Judge Vitarelli breathed in deeply. "I'm thinking about what I should have done years ago, before I let the pressure get to meals." Where in Phoenix, another story was unfolding. An anonymous source leaked an internal court memo to the Arizona Sentinel revealing that Trump's legal team filed a protective objection to block any DNA sample from being provided. The memo was technical, but one paragraph stood out. Client firmly declines biological testing. Counsel recommends alternative settlement terms. Suggests private financial agreement. Media gag order. Immediate sealing. It matched the story Crockett had told almost exactly back in D.C. when the Sentinel report hit the wire. Cut off a live panel mid-discussion. Anderson Pike sat frozen as his producer whispered the update into his earpiece. "Say that again," he asked on air. The voice repeated. The Arizona judge had a DNA request. Trump refused. The test never took place. The panel went silent. "That means," Pike said slowly, "there is no biological proof." No denial either, just silence. Within minutes, the hashtag no DNA was trending. People did not need to understand court language. They understood avoiding the truth, and it hit hard at the White House. Things shook again. Hopes and Claire was gone. Brian Hafford was locked in a room with the president, trying to explain how a 5-year-old memo from a small Arizona court had made national headlines. Trump was not yelling anymore. He was quiet to quiet. "How did they get that memo?" he asked, eyes fixed on the floor. "They didn't," Hafford replied. "Someone leaked it. Maybe a clerk, a lawyer, maybe even the judge." Trump grunted. "She swore it would stay sealed." Halford did not mention that promises mean little when truth stares down a judge. Nearing retirement across the country, the tone had changed. This was no longer some distant political drama. This was real, messy, human, and uncomfortable. People started asking if he had nothing to hide. Why not just take the test? In a Tulsa salon, a woman getting her braids redone mumbled, "It's always the lies that bring them down, not the act." The lies. In Minneapolis, a college student tweeted, "Do not care who the father is. I care that the president used the courts like his private closeted," and conservative voices began to break. A retired GOP advisor said live on radio, "We'm not saying it's true, but the way they keep dodging it, it looks bad." Silence speaks louder than the claimant. While Judge Vitarelli made one more call to Jasmine Crockett's officino assistant, No voicemail. She was put through directly to the Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. This is Rosanna Vitarelli. Think you will want to see what I have. But while Crockett prepared for what came next, Americans from coast to coast were also making decisions not just politically, but morally. By the time Good Morning America read the Arizona court memo, the public was not just watching the news anymore. They were living it in a diner in Des Moines, Iowa. The usual talk of weather and crop futures gave way to tense arguments about truth, trust, and what it means to be lied to by the person in the highest office. Two booths over, an older couple clashed with a young man in a Carhartt hoodie. "I do not care who fathered that boy," the older man muttered while stirring coffee. "This sounds like a hit job." The young man leaned forward. "You really believe he did not dodge that test? There's proof, sealed papers, NDAs. The whole thing ran from the truth, like he runs from everything else." Down in Mobile, Alabama, in a church parking lot, a prayer meeting turned into a full-blown debate. Pastor Carl Denson had just finished morning prayer when a deacon messaged him turn on the TV. When he did, Crockett's face took over the screen again. This time, she was walking up the Capitol steps with two aides and a plain manila folder in hand. The Washington Ledger reported that a federal request was filed to unseal further records named by Crockett's team. The wording in the motion was direct: "The issue is now of national importance. Blocking truth under executive privilege is a failure of public ethics." Voters responded quickly. In some districts, protests started without planning. People stood outside state buildings in Utah, Missouri, and Pennsylvania holding handmade signs demanding transparency. But the backlash was not only from one side. In Birmingham, pro-Trump crowd gathered in front of a local news station after it aired the memo headline. "Woman in a blouse decorated like the American flag yelled through a bullhorn, 'This is what they do, and they cannot beat him at the polls. They go after his family.'" Across the city, half an hour later, a group of college students held a silent march carrying signs saying "Truth over image," and "We deserve honest." letters in cafes, classrooms, work sites, and buses. People started choosing sides. Meanwhile, in Gary, Indiana, a single mother named Patrice Kinley sat on her couch with her 15-year-old daughter, both watching the news like it was happening right in their home. "Why did he not just take the test?" their daughter asked quietly. Patrice sighed and shook her head. "Baby, when people lie for so long, Gavin, the truth starts to feel like danger." In Philadelphia, college professor Hugo Bren held an open discussion in his American ethics class. He wrote one question on the board's personal truth matter in public service. What followed was 3 hours of some of the most raucous debate he had witnessed in years. One student cried. Another left the room upset. Crockett, meanwhile, had stayed silent since the call from Judge Vitarelli. She was getting ready, not just legally but emotionally, because this was more than a political scandal. This was about how America sees its leaders and whether that belief ever matched reality. In Bakersfield, California, at a town hall, Representative Lynette O'Connor faced her own wave of criticism. Conservative voters stood up and shouted, "You people are tearing this country apart with gossip." She did not yell back. She simply asked at gossip if it's in a court record. He had no reply. Even international media reported on the story. A British anchor called it the biggest paternity question since Jefferson. In Canada, late-night comedians tried to balance humor and disbelief. And in Brazil, an anchor simply said, "In America, our fears the truth more than losing." But back in Washington, another change was unfolding. Poll numbers. A fresh survey showed Crockett's popularity had climbed 18 points among independents, especially those younger than 40. Trump's loyal base held steady, but undecided voters were shifting toward what people were now calling the honesty faction. And although Crockett did not hold a press conference, her team confirmed one detail to the Columbus Herald: Judge Vitarelli's envelope was now in their hands. And social media reactions exploded. "She's not finished, she's preparing her next movie." In a Facebook group for political science students, one post caught attention. "Crockett is not bringing him down with noise, she's bringing him down with paperwork." But this was no longer just about Trump. It had become a question of how America responds when truth is not whispered anymore but spoken out loud with evidence. And while the nation kept watching, every update, Crockett was preparing her final step, one intended to settle the matter clearly and leave no doubts. It was Just past 3 p.m., when Jasmine Crockett stepped out of a silver sedan and walked to the press podium outside the Capitol, there were no TV networks warned ahead. There were no barricades or press badges, only a few dozen reporters who had gathered early based on a single rumor. She's going to speak. She did not bring aides, no dark glasses, no lawyer beside her, just the same manila folder everyone had seen her carry into the building that morning when she stepped up to the microphone.